welcome to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, where we are once again going to be doing a season rewind. This time we're going to be looking back on the 2013-14 season, the first of the Roberto Martinez era. For that, I'm joined by our own Terry McAllister, and for the first time on the Toffee Blues, the Blue Room's very own Matt Jones. As I've said already for the podcast listeners, it's a very well-timed first appearance for Matt, so I think we'll all remember this season very fondly. On that note, we'll start with Matt to give us a bit of context. How do you remember feeling, Matt, in the summer of 2013 about when Martinez was appointed and what we're expecting going into the season?
I just remember feeling really weird because you know, for me, my match goal in life as an Evertonian, someone who sits here as a 30-year-old fella, was David Moyes. Every time I'd gone to the game with my mates, every time I'd have a season ticket, I'd go to a bar, it was David Moyes on the sidelines there. I remember walking away from the last home game of the previous season when we played West Ham. We won 2-0, and they played really well that day, and there's a lot of goodwill about, there's a lot of good feeling about. And it was just a peculiar feeling knowing that next time we went into that ground that this fella was not going to be there again. And it wasn't a sense of, you know, a club icon was leaving or anything like that. It was just a case of, well, what are we going to do now? You know, Everton don't lose managers. Everton don't sack managers at this point. So it was interesting. I think looking back, I was somebody who quite liked the idea of Martinez coming in. I quite liked the idea of having somebody come in who would be a little bit braver in bigger games, would play a bit more expansive football, maybe put his arms around the club and give us all a big metaphorical hug when we needed it most after David Moyes left to go to Manchester United. So mainly it just all felt a bit weird, but I was quite excited by what was to come. And obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about the signings in a bit, but the likes of Lukaku coming in, Gerard Deulofeu coming in, even James McCarthy at that point was a young up-and-coming player. It felt as though the club was altering the direction a little bit and going in a potentially exciting direction. So mainly a little bit weird, but optimistic about what was going to potentially come next.
Certainly, I think I remember, I'm not sure if any of you guys remember the first press conference when Bill Kenwright sat down next to Martinez and said that he was going to get us in the Champions League. Does anyone remember that?
Yeah, Martinez's grey suit, absolutely outstanding. He had a full head of hair at that point as well, didn't he? Yeah,
he was looking proper sharp, wasn't he, on that first one?
Yeah, but yeah, it was an interesting one, that, wasn't it? Because I think he threw Roberto under the bus a little bit, didn't he? Kenwright, by saying that, because I think Martinez said that he wanted European football, he wanted to get into the Champions League eventually, and then Bill sort of cut across his answer and said, "This fella said we're going to get him the Champions League." Yeah, so.
It's just like, it's vintage Kenwright, really, when you think about it, just making it all a little bit more theatrical than it maybe needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it was just a bit mad seeing some, like I said, sort of seeing somebody else sat there. Just the visual sensation of it was peculiar, but dead exciting. You know, he looked the business, he talked the business as well. So I was excited for that first game, definitely.
That was it for me. As like you said before, my sort of lifetime of supporting Everton up until that point was David Moyes as manager. I first started watching about 2002. His first full season, really. That was the first season I can remember, and I can vaguely remember Walter Smith, but all I'd ever seen, like I say, when I went to Goodison, was seeing David Moyes on the touchline. I'm not sure, Terry, if you could recall any sort of time before Moyes. Did you go to any games in the early 2000s?
You know what? No, my experience is exactly the same as yours. I was Moyes. I was a child of the Moyes era. Like I'm 30, so I obviously, you know, was around for pre-Moyes stuff, but I got into football quite late. I got into football in secondary school, so I literally only ever knew Moyes like that same season that you're talking about, the first full Moyes season with, you know, Rooney breaking through and what have you. When it came time, you know, this summer that we're talking about, though, I mean, Moyes had done a good job at Everton, but I personally had gone a little bit stale on him. Like I wasn't like, you know, desperate for him to go, but when he was leaving, I was like, yeah, I'm ready for something new, just because he's been there so long. We've sort of, you know, floated around the same, you know, part of the table for the whole time. We've had some good players, but I felt like we're sort of nearly men. We keep getting to like semi-finals and stuff like that, and never actually, you know, kicking on. So I was almost in a way happy that he was going, and, you know, excited to see something new, something fresh. And I did like Martinez, I won't lie and say it was based on his football or anything like that. I just thought, and I think we all got this as soon as after he got here, but I liked the way he spoke. He came across really well. You know, like we came, you know, eventually he did that to everyone. He would talk people into bed, couldn't he? He was, you know, while the results were right, he had the gift of the gab. You know, everyone loved him, and I think a lot of people, you know, as time went on, you know, went in too much on him. But the summer was just crazy because it was the first summer under a new manager that I'd experienced, and definitely the first one for a long time. But then, obviously, we can talk about the players he brought in on the deadline day after the season had already started. But he almost had an influx. I think it was all in the same week or the same few days. He brought in a lot of his ex-Wigan players. He brought in, you know, Joe Robles, but he was from Atletico, but he'd been on loan at Wigan. Alcaraz and Kone, and then Gerard Deulofeu on loan, and it was just so strange that we were signing multiple players at the club because it's not now, you know, in the modern context, but back then Moyes would do one, maybe two deals a summer, and they'd take ages, and like transfer windows were not something that you got excited for because, you know, you'd be linked with all the players in the world, but you'd only get one, that kind of thing. Whereas this was a complete turnaround, and although they weren't all exciting players, Deulofeu did, you know, definitely got tongues wagging because he was this. Well, back then,
prospect.
Yeah, he was like, you know, Ansu Fati now. You know, like, you know, he'd see, maybe not to that degree, but you know, this wonder kid from Barcelona who we strictly have not got a buyout clause on, which means, oh yeah, he's so good that Barca are not letting him go. So it was just, I was really like, you know, G'd up in the summer going, oh, this is going to be different, this, and I'm looking forward to, you know, this season. It's going to be, you know, what we haven't had before. And yeah, I was excited. I wasn't glad to see Moyes go in the strict sense that I didn't like him, but I was ready for him to go.
I think it's a good point you made there. That you wanted to see something different, and maybe that we didn't get past the final hurdle in a lot of those semi-finals. It's worth remembering in the Moyes' final season, we went out to Wigan in the cup to Martinez's Wigan, who then went on to win the cup. So maybe I think the fact that Martinez was coming in, having gone that step further that Moyes couldn't do with Everton, maybe gave us a bit more optimism that he could maybe take an Everton side, which was superior to the Wigan side he was managing before, maybe take us to a cup final, win us a cup that Moyes never managed to do. I'm not sure if that's what you guys were feeling at the time.
Yeah, I think he's shown himself throughout his career, hasn't he? You know, sort of looking beyond this 13-14 season to be a fellow who on any given day can set up a side to beat any side. And, you know, we'll speak about, no doubt, games in this season, most notably the Arsenal one, which is obviously the anniversary of today. It's mad to even think that was 6 years ago. Absolutely insane, really. But, you know, putting Lukaku on the right wing and that sort of stuff. And he's done similar things with Belgium, obviously in the World Cup as well. He did it in his later seasons when things weren't going particularly well at Everton. You know, remember the Chelsea quarter-final where Ron ran them ragged that night. He's always been capable of doing that. But I think that the thing with Martinez, which ultimately came to, you know, to roost at Everton, was that the more he got a grip of the club, the more he got under Everton's skin and fingernails, the more it sort of all unravelled. And while you'd have the odd good performance here and there, you'd have a Chelsea, you know, in the cup, you'd have another good display. You'd have a West Ham, you'd have a Bournemouth where you're 3-2 up in injury time. You'd have a Chelsea where you're 3-2 up in injury time. You'd have a Sunderland and a Liverpool away. So I think there was always that with him. But obviously the cup factor was interesting. And, you know, as I'm sure, again, we'll go on to talk about it, in that first season, and certainly the first few months of that season, just felt like a perfect mesh between the stability that Moyes had put in place, the foundations Moyes had put in place, and just this little sprinkling of stardust that he put on things. And it was a perfect amalgamation of what we want to see as Evertonians.
Definitely, and I think we went into that. Obviously, we went through the pre-season, and it was quite interesting. I went to a couple of the pre-season games, and it was a pretty good watch. Some of the games, it was like a bit more entertaining, which maybe gave you a bit of optimism. And then we went into the away game at Norwich on the opening day. I'm not sure if you guys can remember going into that game. How you felt?
I went to that one. Yeah, went down to that.
How did you feel about what you saw on the day? Obviously, we drew 2 apiece, but how did you feel about the performance? Obviously, the goal that Barkley scored, which was immense.
Yeah, it was. I think the thing that was spoken about a lot afterwards was the goal which Coleman scored to put us 2-1 up that day. Him and Leighton Baines in the 6-yard box, and he sticks that in the back of the net. And it was almost like, well, this is how we're going to be. This is what Everton are going to play like. We're going to have adventurous fullbacks. We're going to have young players. We're going to pile forward, and you know, it's it's interesting, even when we look back at this season fondly, and even that game, I'd probably look back on fondly because of Ross's goal and because of Coleman's goal and the celebrations that followed that. There are the little bits of Everton that's still sprinkled in there. Stephen Whittaker scored after slicing the ball to
Ricky Van
Wolfswinkel, yeah, and he nodded one in, and then Whittaker himself scored after hitting the post and the ball bouncing back perfectly to him. And even in this season, we reflect strongly on there's still those moments where you go, yeah, this is Everton, and that was still Everton. But I was encouraged by sort of what I saw that day. It was a bit of a weird when you think about this season and what came afterwards. You can sort of rattle off the team as you go. The players that played, and every week, the players that played in that Arsenal game and some of the big performances. But in those first 3 games, I think we had Norwich, then we had West Brom at home, which we drew 0-0, didn't we? Then we drew 0-0 at Cardiff as well after that. It was this mishmash of players. We didn't know if Fellaini was going to be staying. We didn't know if Baines was going to be staying at that point as well. Jelavic played up front. Toffee was on the bench. Naismith was in and out to the side. And it just felt like in those first 3 games that we were watching something that wasn't quite complete and ready yet. And then
definitely remember the Cardiff game was very much an indicator of that, where we just didn't seem to be clicking at all. Remember, I think Victor Anichebe was still there then as well, wasn't he? I think he missed a good chance in the West Brom game, and there was a lot of...
Well, I think the midfield for that first game against Norwich was Fellaini and Osman. The 2 lads who sat deepest. Yeah. And when you think about, Gareth Barry and James McCarthy weren't even at the football club at that point, but they were, essentially at the nexus of this team, weren't they, for the course of the campaign. So even in those first 3 games, it evolved so much into what it was eventually going to become. So it is a little bit peculiar to think back on those matches, really. But certainly Ross with a marauding run forward and slamming one in from distance. Certainly McColeman sticking one in from the 6-yard box, which I think he did a lot in this campaign. There were sort of some signs of what was going to come.
Yeah, but obviously we knew what ended up coming along was the transfer deadline day when we brought in James McCarthy and Gareth Barry and Romelu Lukaku, both on loan, which, of course, irked Daily Mail's Martin Samuel, if anyone remembers that article, the infamous loan sham article, I think. I remember getting really, I felt I took the bait on that, I'm not going to lie. I really, kicked off in the comments on that, and I think they were dark days when I was still reading the Daily Mail, that. But honestly, yeah, I remember the article and just absolutely fuming because it was they were trying to suggest that our decent season didn't count almost. And I remember it's like people saying we're not allowed to win because we signed some players on loan. But the fact of the matter is, at that time, there was no machinery at this stage. We still had to make ends meet just about and bring players in on a shoestring. And in fairness to Roberto Martinez, he brought 3 players in. He spent 13 million on McCarthy, and then the other 2 were brought in on a loan, and that was really good business. Those 3 players, like you say, turned out to be linchpins of this team. I'm not sure if you guys were... I mean, these were back in the halcyon days of transfer deadline day on Sky and all the hoo-ha that came with that. And I don't know if you were watching the deadline day updates and stuff. I remember going to bed thinking, oh, for God's sake, we haven't got a striker again. And I think Jelavic was misfired. And then I woke up the next day and there's Romelu Lukaku holding the Everton shirt. So they were it was quite an interesting transfer deadline day, that's for sure. I'm not sure if you guys had sort of memories of that deadline day.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the best one we've ever had. It's overblown and too much is made of it. But I remember that one quite clearly because, I mean, it'll probably go back to this when the deadline goes back to the end of August. But it sort of felt and Matt alluded to it before, that your season sort of doesn't start until after the international break when it's the deadline's there, because you have those 3 games, but your transfers aren't complete yet. And obviously our team dramatically changed on that deadline day. But I worked in retail at the time, and I was finishing at 5 o'clock. And the last person I saved in the day was Tony Bellew. Come in with it, and he's sound Tony. I was talking to Tony about Everton. I was saying oh, we'll do anything. He was like, oh, I don't know. And I was basically fishing because I knew he were trained at Finch Farm and stuff like that. But he gave nothing away. But he went, I'm getting home to watch it myself now. So I get home from work and it's about 5:30, 5:45, and I say to, I've been like checking it on the sly and work all day, and I say to brother, is there anything like going on? Like, is like you got no, nothing. And then within half an hour of me getting back in, I've just finished my tea. It starts to kick off. You know, we had Fellaini was protracted, and he hands in a transfer request, and he goes to Man United. Then we've got James McCarthy. He's coming, and he's coming, and he's basically replacing Fellaini in the squad as the midfielder. And Dave Whelan's on the phone to Sky Sports and talking about selling him, and he's slipping in that he broke his leg in a cup final and all that. Right. Gareth Barry came out of nowhere. Like, it was such a surprise transfer. He hadn't been linked to us in the summer so far. It was just a random one that popped up. But then late in the evening, we started getting linked to Romelu Lukaku, and it was just. But then were West Brom. West Brom were linked with them on loan as well. And it was a sort of will he, won't he, which one's he going to go to? And obviously, we're much bigger than West Brom, but he had obviously been at West Brom the season before. And it was just prolonged and prolonged and prolonged. And people are refreshing, their browsers and stuff, and everyone's glued to Sky Sports News. And then eventually it's confirmed that Romelu Lukaku's coming to Everton. Everyone's overjoyed, dancing in the street, but then West Brom get Victor Anichebe instead. I don't know what I'd do if I thought I was getting Lukaku. How the West Brom fans went to sleep that night, I do not know.
Well, that was brilliant business though, because we were struggling for money at the time. We bring Lukaku in on a loan deal and sell him for about 6 or 7 million, if I remember rightly, which was added a bit of money to the coffers, which might have helped us bring Lukaku in permanently the next summer.
I think that night was I'm sure you guys follow him now, Christophe Terreur from Hetlaston News, the Belgian football journalist. I think that was where he really shot to prominence, because I remember I was at my mum and dad's that night, and my dad was on Twitter then, and he was going, and Sky had a West Brom reporter at the West Brom's training ground. He was saying he's on his way to the Hawthorns, he's going to be signing for West Brom. And Christophe Terreur, who didn't have too many followers on Twitter at that point, was Belgian football journalist. He was getting shared a lot by Evertonians, because he was saying no, he's not going to West Brom, he's coming to Everton. And he was just getting shared, and he maintained it all the way through. And then obviously he ended up with the Blues in the end. It was sort of well, this fella's obviously got great connections in Belgian footy. But just funny you mentioned Bellew there, because that summer I went over and spoke to him in Peacock in town. I was a little bit worse for wear. He was in there with his minder, so sort of walked over and ushered through. I was like, I just want to speak to him. I was like, yeah, Tony, lad, Berry in my hand and all that. And sort of said, who do you want the next manager to be? And he said, Phil Neville. I just walked straight off, yeah. didn't carry the conversation on it anymore after that yet. I'm sure you won't mind me saying.
I think he just tried to think of the one person who you'd just be so upset with him that you'd walk away from him.
Yeah, he's probably thinking, want this idiot away from me as soon as possible, yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, but obviously we end up with Lukaku, Barry and McCarthy joining on the deadline day, and the first game after that is a home game against Chelsea. We've drew every single game so far. We're in the bottom half, actually, and Jose Mourinho has just come back to Chelsea, and we beat them 1-0. And that one really surprised me. I never actually watched the game. I was busy that day, and I just remember reading that we'd won the game 1-0, and I thought, how have we managed that when we couldn't beat Cardiff and West Brom? And obviously I'd never seen what the performance was like, and of course, Gareth Barry on his debut made a clearance off the line, didn't he?
Yeah. That moment just endeared Barry to the supporters straight away. He couldn't have even known, but it was just that commitment, that busting a gut to save the goal. He was an Everton player from the minute he'd done that. But was Stephen Naismith scored the goal in that game?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
That was. It definitely felt like the season started there. I mean, it might have come back to bite us at the end of the season with the points tally, but those first 3 games just felt like a sort of, I don't know,
still like pre-season, really.
Yeah, still past the pre-season almost, because we were playing with players that we weren't going to use and whatnot. But I mean, the season kicked on from there, didn't it? Let's be honest.
I think that's it. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I remember that performance being, it was like watching Everton under Moyes again. I think for the first 3 games, it was very much like, this is something we're doing, it's going to be new. We're going to try and play out from the back, and it's going to take a while to get used to. It's going to take a while for these lads to take these messages on board. And while it was frustrating that we drew 2 games 0-0 and we didn't win at Norwich, it was sort of like, well, yeah, we expected this. We knew it was going to be a bit like this. Well, I remember that day at Goodison, it was almost, Chelsea had some good players then. Obviously, they done a lot of business in the summer. I remember Everton started trying to play out from the back early on, and that's where our net 2 chance comes from, doesn't it? Initially, I think it's Howard who gives the ball straight to him, or there's a bit of a miscommunication. Gareth Barry gets in. But throughout the game, it sort of just organically went back to, it was almost like a lot of the players in there just went back to the muscle memory from last season and thought, this is how we've got good results against good teams at this ground in the past. Let's just quickly, for this one game, go back to that. And they battled and they scrapped and they went a bit more direct. And the goal actually comes from a deep cross, doesn't it? And Jelavic gets to the byline. Great header back, and Naismith's there. And it felt like for that one game, just to sort of, like the blue touch paper a little bit, that Everton went back to what they knew. And a lot of those players in the side went back to the muscle memory of David Moyes. And that ultimately proved the catalyst for Roberto Martinez getting his message across a little bit quicker.
That's definitely a good point, actually, because I remember Mourinho actually kicking off about the way we played in the second half.
Yeah.
Like, I think we already had the goal and we were sitting on it, and obviously Mourinho threw a bit of a hissy fit in the presser afterwards. And then it was on to West Ham at Upton Park. And I mean, this is what I really remember. This was a great game. Leighton Baines scores 2 free kicks, a la Kevin Sheedy, 1 in each corner. And Lukaku gets a winner on his debut, so you really couldn't have asked for much more from that game. And
Mark Rober got sent off as well.
Oh yeah, well that just added the icing on the cake, really, innit?
But at least said as well, just before we crack on with more games, not only did Martinez bring in all these new players. Now obviously the 3 on deadline day became settled first teamers, and less so Alcaraz and Robles and Kone and whatever. But he also brought through into the team Stones and Barkley. Now, they'd obviously been around before him, but they weren't first teamers. And all of a sudden, it was how many new players were in the team from the Moyes team. If you looked at the Moyes teams from the year before or the years prior, there was at least 5 or 6 players new in the team, and a new manager. So it really was a brand new, it was fresh, it was new. It was young players, it was flair players, it was it was Moyes' defence with a top striker up front. It just had everything going for it. The only thing that sort of tars this season for me, which we haven't touched on, is that fucking badge.
Oh yeah,
the best season in for absolute years. All the highlights and all the everything, you just see that Fisher Price badge that we had for that one season. It's absolutely shocking.
I don't like the kit at all from the season either. When I knew we were going to be talking about this today, I went back and watched the season, one of the season reviews on YouTube, and just remember I was looking at them thinking, I don't remember thinking the kit was that bad at the time, but watching it back again, it is pretty horrendous. I didn't mind the yellow one.
No, again, looking back, I'm always a massive advocate. I think Everton away kits should be yellow, but I thought that yellow outfit was fucking horrific, to be honest.
I didn't mind the yellow one. I didn't mind the yellow one too much. The home one was I wasn't a fan of, but didn't mind. The yellow one makes me think of the Villa game, which I'm sure we'll come on to talk about in a bit, which I really like.
It's the one we're moving on to next, actually. We've got, obviously, we go to Villa Park and win 2-0. Lukaku scores and Leon Osman scores. But of course, before all that, Christian Benteke has a penalty saved by Tim Howard, I think, which sparked rapturous applause in the away end. I'm not sure if any of you guys were at the ground.
Yeah, I went to loads of away. It's probably the most I've ever been to in a season. So I went to West Ham away. Probably the favourite away I've ever done, that one at Upton Park. They won that game, maybe quite similar to the Watford one this season, where you think, Everton don't win games like that. That's not how this football club is sort of put in my DNA that they win football matches. It was a very un-Everton way to win the game, where you 2-1 down, you get into the last 20 minutes, your new signing comes on and scores the winning goal late on. You've got a fellow who scores 2 free kicks. But the Villa one, I think, I remember Barkley started that day and didn't have the best first half. He had a shot from miles up that was deflected and it hit the bar, but Everton didn't play well. And at that point, even then, he was still sort of like this golden boy. He had a great start to the season. He was being talked up as an England player and all that. And in that game, he either got dragged off on 50 minutes or dragged off on half time. Martinez brought Osman on for him. It just changed the game. And you mentioned Tim Howard there as well. And one of the things I was thinking about this season, I think this game in particular sort of highlights it, is that every lad who played a decent amount of first team games in this season, they all seem to make big contributions. We've already mentioned Stephen Naismith. We talked about Leon Osman there. We'll come on to talk about others who came into the side as well. It felt like every one of the players, maybe the 16, 17 players who made up the first team squad this season, they all had a moment in that season where they could point back on and go, look at that, I contributed there. And that's what made it such a sort of a feel-good story for us all.
It was feel-good. I think the team effort always seems that always makes you feel a lot better when you see the whole team pulling the weight. And I thought a lot of the Moyes teams had that, but this team seemed to have it in abundance, where even the fringe players were turning it on. And I think that added to the season as well. I'm not sure if you remember the games that followed the Aston Villa one. I think we went into a little bit of a blip after that, to be honest. There was a 0-0 at Palace, and
so we have a Tottenham at home we drew.
Tottenham at home, that was a 0-0. There's a couple of 0-0s, a couple of dull games, and then up next was the Merseyside derby at Goodison, which I went to actually, and it was without a doubt. And I mean, I know we've won games, and I've got fond memories of derbies from the 2000s when I was younger, but for a neutral, that was the best Merseyside derby I've ever seen. It was incredibly exciting, and unfortunately, they got a late equaliser. So, but it was such a topsy-turvy game. There was a point where I think Joe Allen misses a sitter, and they could have gone about 3-1 up, 4-1 up, something like that. But obviously, we come back. Lukaku scores 2, and then Daniel Sturridge scores. So, but it was one of them, and I remember at 3-all this, and this is what really defined that season for me, is that Sturridge had scored. It was 3-all. Liverpool had another chance after that. I think Tim Howard made a good save. And then even then, I remember Deulofeu legging it towards the goal at the Gladys end in like the 93rd minute, trying to get a fourth, whereas obviously David Moyes in the past would probably have accepted a 3-all draw in a Merseyside derby. And I thought, we're still trying to win this. This is brilliant.
Yeah, I remember thinking that the tactics of Martinez were just so brave compared to the type of things that Moyes would do in derbies. Didn't Baines get a knock or a pull or something? And he Jordan Henderson stamped on him. I'll have you know, done his ankle in. Well, Baines went off, didn't he? And instead of just bringing on a like-for-like replacement, didn't he put? Remind me, I'm not 100%, but didn't he put like Gareth Barry at left back and bring another attack player on? He brought Deulofeu on, and it changed the game. And everyone just couldn't believe it because it was an attack and change against Liverpool, which just. This is what I mean. Like, Moyes was a good manager for Everton, but everyone had got very used to his quirks and the type of things that he'd do. And this was just it was like a slugfest. Liverpool v Everton. They were trying to beat each other, and I think didn't Suarez have a winner or another goal ruled out?
No, I think that was a couple of years before, wasn't it? Yeah,
but Suarez,
I think, yeah.
But I remember after Sturridge equalised in the 3-all, I think Howard palmed a header from Suarez onto the bar or something.
Yeah.
Then from that went for a corner, I think, and then I think from the corner, Deulofeu started legging it to try and get a fourth in like the last second. It was mad.
Martinez brought Stones on for his debut in that game to sort of just go and play right back. I'm pretty sure he brought him on late on, and Suarez just pulled off him at the back post. It was at the park end, and he lashed a left-footed shot just over. But I remember as well, like you said, Jerry picked up the ball and ran forward. And McCarthy's got it like on the right side of the Gladys Street, and he's trying to get a shot away, and it's just a bit frantic. But yeah, of all the derbies, and obviously we've had so many bad memories, and that's the one you look at and you think, oh, that should have been our day. That should have been our day. Your star striker scoring a bullet header at the Gladys Street end, having come back. Everyone was going absolutely insane. They played really well. The manager was brave. It's the one I look back at and think, that should have been our day. We barely score in these games anymore anyway. But to score a late goal like that against them, it was so disappointing we didn't see it out, and it comes off Sturridge's shoulder, doesn't it, as well? The equaliser.
VAR would have cancelled that in this game.
Yeah, but I remember the overriding emotion immediately afterwards. That point I hopefully thought, we go and beat Liverpool again soon. And obviously it's been 10 years since we last beat them. That was only 3 years ago at the time, but the overriding emotion was just bloody hell, they played well there. They really played well in that game. Simon Mignolet was man of the match. The attack, they should have scored loads more goals, and it was refreshing to see them be sort of unbowed and untamed in a Merseyside derby, having had years, like you said, of David Moyes being, ultra pragmatic and ultra defensive in these sorts of games. But even now, watching the highlights of that today and seeing Rom's dreadlocks flying in the air as he gets up to head that ball into God's Street End, it's one to look back at and think, fucking hell, that should have been our day.
But definitely, my lasting memory of that is like Delafeu legging it at the Gladys with like 30 seconds to go. Osman has a shot blocked or something, and I'm just thinking, this is such a refreshing change of mentality. And then obviously the game after that, we had a bit of a dull spell before that derby, and then after that, I think we beat Stoke 4-0. I think we beat Hull, and then it's to Manchester United at Old Trafford, where we hadn't won at that point in 21 years. Brian Oviedo pops up, who of course was the stand-in for Baines after he got injured in the derby, and he pops up on the back stick and slots one in 87th minute or something like that. And obviously, I remember the videos of the smoke bombs in the away end at Old Trafford and everything. They were brilliant times, and I'm not sure if you guys were like watching this game. Anyone go to the match? Anyone?
Yeah, I was there that night. Yeah, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I've never heard an away end take a big collective breath as much as when that ball just ambles across the 6-yard box. And you realise then that Brian Oviedo's running onto it. It was insane, and I think this game in particular, I remember at the time being on 80 minutes and thinking we've been a bit disappointed with how they played overall. I don't, if you compare it to the Arsenal game that came up later that week, they played well better at Arsenal. They controlled the ball better, they created more chances, they were more aggressive. I think in this game it was a little bit weird. They didn't really know whether to fully go for it or not. They had chances, but United hit the post in the first half. I think it was Rooney or Van Persie, one of them from the edge of the box. Welbeck hit the bar in the second half of a header he should have scored, but it's all about the moment, isn't it? That's all that you remember now. That moment, that ball, and I love goals like that. It's to reference that Watford game again earlier in the season where the ball drops to Walcott, and you can sort of see what's going to happen 2 or 3 seconds before it actually happens, and you're ready, and you're in the away end, and you are primed to just go when that ball hits the back of the net, and it was a bit like that.
Better still, in both of those cases with me, I was watching it on a dodgy stream that was a few seconds behind. The ball stops as it comes to Oviedo, and then my phone buzzes to tell me that there's been a goal, and I'm just like, get in.
Yeah, because the away end at United as well, like anyone doesn't know. So I'm sure everyone's seen the replay of that goal loads of times. Oviedo just comes out of nowhere from the left side of the screen, doesn't he? But when you're in the away end there, you could sort of see it all transpiring. So you could see a long time before you could on the telly that he's about to run to that and just slot it away. So just an incredible moment, yeah. Absolutely loved it. One, even now you sort of look at it and think a win at the top 6 club in inverted commas for Everton is just so rare. So certainly look back at that night and cherish it. And like I said earlier, an Ovalado who got his chance this season and took it. Oviedo started against Stoke, scored a great goal with his right foot, and then scored one of the biggest goals in Everton's modern history, you've got to say, with this one. So an Ovalado was emboldened by Martinez, emboldened by his positivity, and really seized his chance in the side.
I think we talk about the difference in mentality. It really come home to roost in that game, because obviously we were up against David Moyes, who'd just left. He tried to lowball us for Baines, Fellaini and whatnot, and he made a few derogatory comments against the club who had given him a lot of goodwill. Let's not forget when he left in the summer. And I think that hurt a lot of fans, and I think the fans really couldn't help themselves but rub it in when we got that win, because not only was it getting one over on Moyes, who'd insulted maybe the club, and I think he'd said a few things about Martinez in the build-up to that as well, saying that they don't need a manager, the team can manage itself, it's nothing to do with Martinez and such and such. And I remember not only getting one over on Moyes in that respect, but also getting the win ourselves by means of shifting away from Moyes' maybe defensive mentality, which was, and I think that's the night when we coined the song Stuck with Moyes, Man United.
Wonderful.
And it was an absolutely fantastic night. And then, like you say, we go to the Emirates. That was in midweek, the United game, and then the Sunday we go to the Emirates, and we go a goal down, and within 2 minutes we've equalised. And I think that's only half the story, because I can remember this game very well. It was on the telly, and I remember like Thierry Henry was one of the pundits, of course, and ex-Arsenal player, and he was absolutely raving over how well we were playing. We were dominating Arsenal on their own turf, which is, even as poor as Arsenal have been at times, not many teams go to Arsenal and do that.
Yeah, I mean, this felt like the biggest injustice, this game, that we didn't win it, because we were just dominating like almost throughout. With the results that we'd got, the way we played against Liverpool, and the results at Man United, even when we went a goal down, for the first time, literally the first time as an Evertonian, I felt like we'll get back in this. Like that confidence of it will go right, not it will go inevitably go wrong. Now, history has brought out that was a one-off feeling. I didn't feel that again. Didn't feel that before or since, but that was the sort of confidence that this team that were growing at the time had sort of fostered. That I felt like I knew we were going to get back into the game, and obviously the Toffee goal, one of the more underrated goals. That just a little, the way he sort of shimmies past the player with the ball and just smashes into the roof of the net, absolutely quality. But I was at that point like, this kid's going to be playing alongside Messi and everything. This kid's quality, and yeah, this was a season for getting carried away, and I got fully carried away.
In hindsight, I think we can always say, I think a lot of the things that happened in this season were one-offs, really, weren't they?
Yeah. I think that's it's. I know, sort of, when the Reds do this and you get carried away, and you point and laugh and say, it's your year and all that. Obviously, this year it is going to be their year, unfortunately. But I think it was nice to feel like that, getting carried away, wasn't it? Because I think so often we do always fear the worst. We do think that things are going to go wrong, and certainly I'm guilty of that. And maybe as supporters, we should just sometimes say, if Richarlison is playing dead well, he could be one of the best strikers in the world, or something similar about Calvert-Lewin or Holgate. Why does it always have to be so serious and a little bit playing ourselves down? But yeah, I think that Arsenal game was where we did all start to feel like, bloody hell, what is going on here? Because it felt like, because the United game wasn't on telly, I think you said today, James, we had to get a dodgy screen to watch it. Yeah. But I think, we'd all been seeing what had been going on. We'd had the Stoke game, went to United and won. And then playing dead well at Arsenal, it felt like this was the point where the rest of the nation sort of had a look at Everton properly and thought, what's going on here? Everton don't go to these stadiums and play like that. And I don't know if you guys remember, actually, but the last kick of the game, Giroud had a ridiculous volley from about 35 yards out, and he hit the upright of he hit the corner of post and bar. And I don't know how. Tim Howe just stood and watched it, and it would have been the cruelest late goal we conceded of all time, I think. But yeah, to go there and play that well that day was a real measure, I think, of what this side was about, and set them up for a good Christmas period.
Yeah, the Christmas period was brilliant. If I remember rightly, I think we got a late win over Swansea. I think we thumped Fulham. There were some brilliant goals in those games as well. I mean, Barkley's free kick, Coleman's goal.
Yeah.
Some great games. And then
Coleman's celebration at Swansea is a classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Denise like goes a little bit too far, and he just starts volleying the advertising hoardings because there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, I think that's one of them. You can just see his kneecap about to explode or something when he goes flying into that. And yeah, I think I remember coming into January, though, we had a little bit of a blip. I think we had a couple of bad results, like a draw at Stoke, drew at West Brom. And then, of course, we lose the derby 4-0, which is indicator of the con side, maybe, of Roberto Martinez, whereas cavalier style of play can sometimes end you up with those kind of results. You can lose heavily if you get it wrong.
Yeah. It was it was the first sign, that, wasn't it, of what some of the problems were going to be for Martinez. But we'd rushed players back from injury, hadn't we? And we were playing Stones at right back and stuff. And it just, I mean, since this time, you've obviously started just losing derbies regardless. But it always felt like in derbies, and especially Anfield derbies, at that point, that we were always getting injuries just beforehand, or there was always something that went against us, which hamstrung us. And obviously, now doesn't matter, but because we could play it, we could have our team in flying form and play their women's team, and we'd find a way to lose. But at that time, it was just so frustrating, because it was like, we've never got like a full team in good form going into these Anfield derbies. And it was a sickener, but just that game I ran late in work. I couldn't get out to work, and I went to a pub and met my brother, and I came and sat down, and I looked at the screen and I was like, I think it was back when BT had the scores in the bottom left corner rather than in the top right, which most TV stations do. And I looked at it and went, because I'd missed the kickoff, and I was like, and it was 3-0, and I was like, is that the score in the bottom corner? I was like, that can't be the score. I thought maybe we'll be a goal down, but 3-0, and he was just there going, yeah, it's 3-0, and it was the most. I'd have to sit there then for the rest of the game thinking, we've already lost. What am I doing here? Why am I even in this pub? I could just turn around and walk back out. I've been desperate to get there to try and catch the beginning of this derby, and we were already 3 down. It's just like, I mean, we've got used to it a bit more now, but it was just such a kick in the balls. It's like we've got these players back from injury and in time for the game. Like I think it was Pienaar was one of them, and they just looked off it, and it was. I think that was one of the nights as well where Morales was the only one. Like he used to do this he's done this a couple of times in derbies where he looked like the only one who wasn't cowed by the occasion. I don't know, but it got better from there. But let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, we had we carried on with a bit of a blip. We lost to Spurs and lost to Chelsea, and then after that, Lukaku comes back from injury, and we win 7 games in a row, which is. As far as Everton are concerned, I think it's unprecedented. Really, I think it's the best run we've had since the season we won the league in maybe '85 or '87. So, I think to go on that kind of winning run's just unthinkable. It certainly is these days. But we managed it then, and we won about 5 in a row going into a game away at Newcastle when Ross Barkley scores an absolute worldie. And in fact, I think every single one of our goals that night was a brilliant goal. It was another fantastic, like I say, it's very uncommon these days with Everton. We bemoan it a lot, but that season is full of absolutely brilliant away days. Yeah,
there's so many. That Liverpool one you mentioned there is obviously probably the one of the low points, and I think it, in fairness, to the lads, for them to recover from that night, because not only did we get beat 4-0, it could have been much worse, because Sturridge misses a penalty, you think, on 55 minutes to make it 5, and you're thinking, oh my word, what's going to happen here? Lukaku gets injured by Gareth Barry, doesn't he? Who loses out to Steven Gerrard in the header, who then scores. So it's sort of like all these classic Everton tropes rolled into one. So fair play to the lads for coming back in that sense. But yeah, that season, I think, on the away from home, that Newcastle game in particular, I think brings it home more than any for me. That at times you looked at our attackers, and I think Deulofeu played that night, Barkley obviously, and Lukaku. It was like we just looked well faster than everybody else. Like when you bring a new player on FIFA and he's got a full energy bar and he just breezes past a tired defender or something like that. It was like that away from home. It's like on the counter attack, he was so good. And Moyes had a lot of merits, obviously, but one of the things he never really did was build an Everton team that could really counter attack like that. And you think about Ross's goal that night. You think about Rom's goal that night where Deulofeu scampers down the right-hand side and puts a cross in. We were really, really good on the break, and teams couldn't live with us when the game was in transition. And obviously Barkley was a vital part of that. But yeah, there were some great aways. The United one stands out, West Ham as well. Going down to Fulham in that run of 7 games you mentioned there, when it gets back to 1-1, and you're thinking, is this going to be the end? And they find a way to dig it out. Stephen Naismith, and I think Morales scored the third one that day, and they just managed to find a way of getting through games away from home, which, in fairness, any Everton team since has been unable to do.
Yeah, I think that was another brilliant away to think of Fulham when, of course, Leighton Baines found an ice cream man.
Yeah, of course, yeah. There's just loads of little things in this season as well, isn't there, like that? Again, I was watching the video back before, and when Ross scored the free kick away at Swansea, and Martinez just puts his hand in the air and he goes, "What a fucking goal!" And you can tell straight away. Do you remember how much we dined out on that down the years, and how much we loved it at the time? It was full of nice little moments. The Christmas video. I can't believe we got to talk about that.
Oh my god!
The Christmas video, with Lukaku dancing with who is it? He's dancing with one of the. Who's the kit man?
Ginny Comer, Josie Comer's dad.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and you've got all that sort of stuff going on. And there was just a great mood around the club. You know, you had Alan Myers there as well, doing fan interaction and having tea parties with the manager and all that sort of stuff. There was just such a great feel with atmosphere around the place in that campaign.
The old club had everything about being an Everton fan that season was just brilliant. And like I'm sure grand old team or someone was going, we're going to ask a question of Roberto Martinez, what do you want it to be? Or it was something like that. And the top one was, where do you get your shoes? Everyone was buzzing off his brown shoes.
Yeah, Bobby Brown shoes, yeah.
Bobby Brown shoes, yeah. And he donated them to charity at the end of the season. It was just, everything was brilliant, wasn't it?
That's where it went wrong, because that's where I ran out when he donated the shoes.
Yeah.
But anyway, obviously the game after the Fulham one, we're back at Goodison against our top four rivals, Arsenal. And we go into it, it's a crunch match, the kind of game we couldn't afford to lose. And we win 3-0. And it's one of the best performances I've been supporting Everton for 24 years, and that's the best performance I've seen in my lifetime. I think we just a top six side, and we completely dominated them from start to finish. It was the most complete display I've seen from an Everton team, and I think it's just the memories of that game, Lukaku scoring that goal and running over and grabbing Martinez, and Coleman doing the keepy ups and doing a drag back on Cazorla. I think there's just so many great memories, and of course Arteta knocked us out the cup and kissed the badge, so then he goes and scores an own goal at Goodison. I think that was there was just so much fond memories from that game alone. It was unbeatable, really. It was, and obviously it wasn't to get any better than that, unfortunately. But while it lasted, that game was the height of my time supporting Everton, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's one of them, isn't it? It wasn't just a great all-round performance. It was a great all-round performance under pressure. Because I think going into that game, obviously we lost to Liverpool and we got out the cup, so we lost to Tottenham and Chelsea. And it almost felt like the season's going to be over now. We're going to finish about 7th, probably play some nice footy, probably beat some good sides, but that's about that. And they went on that great run, and Arsenal come to Goodison Park, and I think they were 5 points ahead of us, but they played a game more or something like that. And effectively we beat them. It was going to be in our own hands going into the last few weeks of the season. And you sort of got the sense going into the game that knowing Everton as we all do intimately, unfortunately, that we would find a way to Everton this and it wouldn't go our way. So for Martinez to sort of bring out this mad tactic and for the team to play so well under the scrutiny of knowing that this would put the Champions League in their hands was amazing, really. Like you said, there's so many good memories. And funnily enough, it was the game after this which made me think that we were going to finish 4th. When they went up to Sunderland and played terribly, and they dug out a 1-0 win. Delafeu crossed it in and it hit Wes Brown on the arse. And
it was an own goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it went to the back of the net. We won 1-0, and I think that was the last game of the sequence, the 7-game sequence.
It was, yeah.
But I remember coming back from that thinking, that is the sort of game a team challenging for the Champions League wins. But the Arsenal one, absolutely remarkable. The manager's tactics, the atmosphere, the way the team played. I remember Barkley squaring up to Arteta as well in that game, and there's that that famous meme now, isn't it? Shut up, lad. Yeah, there's that one. Yeah, it had everything. It had the great performance. The manager got it right. It had a bit of edge about it. We absolutely battered them, and it felt like. And I felt a bit like this last season as well. When we beat Man United 4-0, it felt like that game was sort of going to be the start of something. And the building blocks for something. It was like, we're going to go somewhere with this fella in charge. You can really feel it. And unfortunately, on both instances, it's not been to be. But that day will certainly live long in the memory. Yeah,
definitely. I think it was just days after my 18th birthday. So I think I remember I had my first. I went to the bar, ordered my first pint, and was up on the chairs when the second goal went in by Lukaku. That was unbelievable. Obviously, that was probably the high point of the season, if in a season full of high points, really. But that was the high point. But obviously, it wasn't to be afterwards. Obviously, the next home game was, and let's not forget, the scheduled match against Crystal Palace, which we were meant to play back in the February. It was postponed because of wind, and we have to play Palace in midweek, who by this point are in the middle of their great escape. They were bottom of the league by this point. They just climbed out of the drop zone and were in the middle of a brilliant run themselves. And Roberto Martinez, if you'd asked me, this was the start of the downfall for me, this game, because he drops James McCarthy. I'm not sure if you remember that. I remember getting the text, like I used to get on my phone, that gives you the lineups, and I saw McCarthy wasn't in it. He was playing a 4-4-2, and I was like, well, this is a bit out of character. I mean, I like 4-4-2, and I'm very pleased that Ancelotti's brought it back. But back then, it was unthinkable that Martinez would pick a 4-4-2, and we came unstuck. It was a game where we were just off it completely.
Do you know what? That game, the Palace one, I remember we just got over to up to the ground, and it was called off because of the wind, obviously. I remember being really pleased that it was called off that night because the team had been announced, but we had loads of injuries. I think like Morales was out, Pienaar was out, so our wingers were McGeady and Oviedo. It was a bit of like a scratch side. And I remember thinking at the time, like, could be a blessing in disguise this for us to not have to play in these conditions against Tony Pulis side with a really scratched team out. But obviously it all came back to bite us a bit. The McCarthy decision was just a bit mad. I remember because this game was obviously midweek, wasn't it, as well? And we had United coming up the weekend after. I think it was Easter Sunday we played United.
Yeah.
And I sort of got the sense that he was maybe resting him for that game and thinking about that. But, Palace at that point, Pulis turned into a bit of a yard dog. Alfred could counter-attack really well with Balassi. I remember him running us absolutely ragged this night. He was unplayable. So yeah, it was just he got it wrong, and there were times during the game when I thought we were going to get back into it. We get back into it at 2-0 down, then we get it back to 2-1. Then they're 3-1 up, and we get it back to 3-2 later on, and we're trying to get an equaliser. But yeah, the McCarthy decision was just a bit wild, wasn't it? Really.
Where we lost it, wasn't it? It was our game in hand. It was just that we needed, like when we won the Arsenal game, we all knew if we beat Palace, we're in fourth, and then it's in our hands. And it just wasn't meant to be, was it? I mean, was this to lighten the mood of this game? Was the reschedule on the Rick Wee game?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
it was.
Where he come from, like practically the moon, and the players and like. Martinez all like showed him around the dressing room and all that just to get make it worthwhile.
Yeah. He got to hang out with Leighton Baines afterwards, I think, didn't he, and all that.
Well, that's even more of the the feel good stuff that went around the club. That like he just had the Midas touch this season for anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Roberto Martinez was a massive part of that. To be honest with you, whether you liked his tactics or not, he was a cracking bloke.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't.
When we were winning all the games, no one had a bad word to say. Everyone was in love with him. Like, he was talking about like earlier in the season, like I've put pictures up of Everton legends on the wall, and there's ways of winning titles that aren't just about money. And if he's winning matches and 7 in a row and all that, then you're gonna eat it up. But obviously that's when down the line those same platitudes weren't cutting as much ice when we weren't winning. So
yeah,
well, obviously, but I think from a human point of view, though, I just thought that he was a lot more warm and friendly than the likes of maybe a Moyes and definitely Ronald Koeman, who came afterwards.
Yeah, well, funny you say. I remember we got Henry Winter on the show that season, and we asked him about him, and he said that his sources had told him that apparently he could lose it in the dressing room as well, and every now and then he could be angry and he could be nasty. So it seemed like he had a bit of a streak to him as well. But yeah, I don't think you could ever, managers come in, and it's not really something that I get too fussed about. A lot of people want to see them embrace the club and that sort of thing. And you could never, ever say that Roberto Martinez didn't want to embrace the club with what he tried to do, the way he went about it, how fondly he spoke about the football club, the football he tried to play at Goodison Park. It was just, I think that those sorts of things that we sort of, loved him for when, I remember when we went to, it was before the United game actually, away from home. And before the game, he said, the result doesn't matter. It's all about the performance. And at the time, we were playing really well and we were high up in the table. And I remember going to the game, we were like, this fella's amazing. He doesn't care. He's thinking about football differently. This is absolutely brilliant. But if you fast forward to 2 years when the team was struggling, if he'd said something like that, you'd be going, what on earth is this fella talking about?
Yeah.
So I think it's one of them, isn't it? when the results aren't going well, you frame things differently, don't you? It's every football fan does it, but you certainly couldn't say his heart wasn't in the right place.
Definitely. But obviously, I think then, obviously, we talked about the contrast. It was Man United again, and Kevin Mirallas scores and Leighton Baines scores a penalty, of course, the very Leighton Baines that David Moyes pursued vehemently the previous summer. Everton win and Moyes gets sacked after a child shows up dressed as the Grim Reaper behind him in the family enclosure.
It was a Paddy Power stunt, that wasn't it?
What?
Wasn't it a Paddy Power stunt? Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah, seems like sort of thing they do. Yeah, but
that's about right, to be honest.
Yeah, but it was fantastic nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a great day. I remember it was a weird day that because I remember being in Rigby's in town and we watched Liverpool. They beat Norwich the day like earlier that day to go. Like I think they went like 7 points clear at the top, and it was a bit like, oh, this season's turned into a bit of a shit one. All things considered, we thought we were going to get fourth. They're going to win the league, But I think everyone just sort of went into the ground with that in mind and sort of thought, oh, do you know what? Who gives a shit? We've got a good team, we've got a good manager. Let's just get behind these lads and try and stick it into Man United and David Moyes. And it just felt like, why not? It was one of those sort of why not days at Goodison Park, and everyone sort of. I don't remember much of the second half. I don't know about you lads. The first half, obviously, they tore into them. Ron played on the right hand side again, and we sort of, we get the goals to go ahead. But the second half, just one of those halves of football in a big game, and I just don't really remember anything happening at all.
No, it wasn't really much of a spectacle. I think the real spectacle, of course, was the Grim Reaper behind David Moyes in the family enclosure. Obviously, Moyes gets the sack. I mean, just to add to the narrative of the season, a week later, we lose 2-0 to Southampton through 2 own goals, if you can get any more Everton than that. Painful. But thankfully, we weren't the only ones doing Everton that weekend. The next day, Gerrard slips.
Yeah. Oh, bizarre.
What a season, though. Just the amount of insane things that went on. Yeah. And then, of course, Liverpool blow it. The title's out of their hands. It's on Manchester. It's on us to stop Manchester City winning the league the next week. So everyone's counting on us to do the Copites a favour, and we we lose 3-2. It was a pretty valiant performance, to be honest. We scored 2 decent goals, but I'm not sure if it.
The crowd was like the most dead you could see, and like Gary Neville and Martin Tyler are absolutely, devastated that Liverpool aren't going to win the league for some reason, despite the fact that both Man United fans apparently.
Yeah.
But the fans clearly were like, yeah, well, our season's wrapped up. We're 5th, and that's what all we're going to be. We're not helping you. Piss off. You wouldn't help us.
Yeah.
That's it. If he hadn't beat us 4-0, we might have got the top 4. So huge,
Yeah, it was. Over the that Barkley goal in that game is one of the great forgotten Everton goals. That's an unbelievable strike. That I was watching it again today, and the height and the dip he gets on it's remarkable to put Everton 1-0 up. But I always remember there was a lot of people in the ground who were supporting Everton and wanted us to win. I was still sort of the mindset of, if we could still get 4th, and we still could at that point, then I want us to win. It was sort of resigned to them essentially winning it anyway. But City went 3-1 up, didn't they? And then Rom scored a great header to make it 3-2. And there was sort of like an awkward cheer, and then everyone was sort of like, do we want us to go on and score again or not? And then I remember I think Alcaraz bizarrely had a chance at the back post later on, and he skewed it. And it was a bit like, you're playing well, lads, we're enjoying this, but maybe don't score another one to just make sure City still win. But yeah, just a mad. It
would have been the most Everton. To be honest, that would have been the most Everton thing going, though, if Alcaraz scored the goal for us to win them the league.
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't. I was fully I don't want to win, because all the Liverpool pundits and all, like John Bishop, are all like Evertonian for the day. It's like, oh yeah, all you patting on the head stuff. Fuck off. I mean, I said the players didn't get the memo. One player did, Tim Howard. He let that goal in on his near post. Like,
oh yeah,
nice one, Tim.
Yeah, that one. But obviously, the title's then out of Liverpool's hands. They have to beat Crystal Palace. They bottle it and all that stuff. And then the final day comes along, and we wrap it up with a 2-0 away win. A whole Lassina Traore gets a 1-minute cameo to round off his 2 whole appearances for Everton. And, of course, Lukaku and McCarthy get the goals to round off a very successful season as far as the Premier League era goes for us anyway. But looking back, like what's your lasting memory of that season, guys? Like one each. Go ahead.
I think it's just from a personal point of view, it's the most fun I've ever had watching Everton. Like I said earlier on, I went to so many away games that season. If people ask me my favourite aways or favourite days following Everton, it would have been in that campaign. A lot of them came in the season after when we got into Europe as well. So it was fun to live it as a lad in the early 20s, going out on the ale with your mates, going to watch Everton win all the time with your mates. It was just a fantastic time. And I remember that last day at Hull being sort of, are we going to keep Rom? What's going to happen in the summer? And when we got in, I thought we're going to kick on from this now. But it's bittersweet looking back, isn't it? Because it was such a good,
it really is, yeah.
It was such a good season. We had such a good time following the team, and it should have been the start of something great. But unfortunately, in typical Everton fashion, it wasn't quite that.
What about you, Terry?
Yeah, much the same. Just bittersweet. I absolutely adored this season. This season, and obviously the season we finished fourth. But you know what? Even more so this season, just because I was older and it was more recent, and it was easy. When we finished fourth, you knew it was with an unfashionable, workman-like team that were playing above themselves, and this team felt like it could go. It felt like we can sustain this. We can play in Europe, and obviously, the season after, we absolutely, terrorised some teams in Europe with the players we had. We had players who were, Lukaku's too good for the Europa League, especially then, and we were just. As Matt said, bittersweet. I really, really think of this season fondly. I think I was the most in love with the club that season that I've ever been. Like it's like your club's like a marriage, isn't it? Like sometimes you love them, sometimes you hate them, but you're always with them. And this season it was just like fantastic because everything, that not just how good the football was, how much we liked the players. There was all kinds. There was the Baines ice cream van is a good one, that kind of thing. Just
Christmas video, that is a great show.
Every single little thing was just brilliant throughout this season, and I'll still always have, despite how sour it turned in the end, a little soft spot for Roberto Martinez for this season.
Yeah, definitely.
You just think that 72 points, thinking of Everton team getting 72 points, in this season or next season now, that is a massive achievement. And, I think the stats were ridiculous, weren't they, about how any team before under the Premier League era that got that many points and finished in the top four. So classic Everton in that sense. But it was effectively lightning in a bottle, wasn't it? And it shouldn't have been lightning in a bottle. It should have been sort of a foundation for us to build on. But getting 72 points, and as much as I'm optimistic about the future and what's going on at the football club now, I think it'll be a long time before we see an Everton team get anywhere near that points tally again.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think for me, again, like I say, the Arsenal game for me was the high point. Obviously, my 18th birthday, celebrating with my first pint that I was allowed to buy myself in the pub, raising a glass, getting up on the table. It was, like I say, very, very fond memories of that game in particular. It was, like I say, the high point of a season full of high points and a fantastic season, whatever way you look at it, really. Just a shame we couldn't cap it off with a top four finish, really. Just before we finish, though, I am going to read out a few comments. We asked you guys to get involved on social media and let us know what your best memories were of this season. And what we're going to do, I'm going to read out a few comments from Twitter and Instagram from what you guys said. So I've got on Twitter, Christoph said, our season was incredible. The quality of the game offered too. We deserve fourth place, but Arsenal has its usual annual subscription for this place. To be fair, we could have. It was always in their hands. We just never took it out of their hands, unfortunately, with that Palace game. A few others, I always remember going to that Palace midweek game with a chance to consolidate, and we bottled it against Balassi and Co. That was Eddie S. Lee. Yeah. And, of course, Louis Ete, the 14, we beat United at Old Trafford. Oviedo, the GOAT.
Star of Sunderland till I die, yeah.
That Southampton away game with 2 own goals, Oviedo goal and Gerrard's slip. And best moment is Oviedo's goal against United. That worst moment was Crystal Palace at home. And then finally, Oviedo 1-0, beating them away. It was everyone seems to love the Oviedo one on social media, on Instagram in particular. So yeah, so that's the thing. We've all got so many different choices, haven't we? Like we've all said something different, and that just says how, like I say, a season full of high points, and it's not often you get that as an Everton fan. So it's safe to say that this is really a season to cherish. Yeah. Wonderful memories indeed, but there's going to be plenty more where that came from. We're going to have another season rewind lined up, so definitely drop us a comment. Let us know which season you want us to cover next, and by all means, keep commenting with your memories of the 2013-14 season as well. Give us a like and a subscribe and all of those things. Make sure you tune into the Blue Room podcast too with Matt and Co, because it's absolutely brilliant content on there. I'm sure Matt will second that.
It's all right.
It's all right.
Depends which one of our guests we have on.
There you go, yeah. That's Scout for its brilliant content. So, and until next time, for you guys watching on YouTube, thank you to Terry and to Matt for joining us, and thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues.